So here we have some data that's continuous. We have a continuous explanatory variable, light level in percent, and we have a continuous response variable, plant height in centimeters. What we're going to do here is create a scatter plot. So to create any chart, you have to say insert, and then there's a bunch of options here. What you don't want to do is do recommended charts. You want to know the chart you're going to create. If you have continuous data, both a response variable and explanatory variable, you're going to use a scatter plot. And so insert a scatter plot, and then you'll have a blank slate. Right click and say select data. You're going to add a series here, and then you're going to select your X and Y values here. So X values are the explanatory variable, which is light level. So you're going to highlight all your values. Then your Y variable, your Y values, is your response variable. Here it's plant height. And you're going to click OK. And now we have a scatter plot. It's not the nicest looking scatter plot, but it's a scatter plot. So we have to do some things to clean this up. First, we're going to remove the chart title. We're also going to remove the lines. What this might do is remove your axis lines. In that case, you'll have to add those back. The next thing we want to do is add our axis titles. This is kind of a meaningless figure without our axis titles. So you can do this several ways. You can click this little cross, the green cross, and say add axis titles. You can go up here and say add chart element and select axis titles. Either way, you get to add your axis title. So down here for the x-axis, we have light level in percent. And here on the y-axis, you can just double click into the box and type out plant height in centimeters. All right, that looks pretty good. There are some things we can add though. One is the size of the font right here is pretty small. So to increase the font size of everything, we basically can just select this, go to home, and see these little buttons here? It says increase font size. You can just click this a few times until you get a font size that looks pretty good. 14 seems like a good size. The other thing we can do with the continuous variables is add a trend line. So you can right click on this and say add trend line, or you can say add chart element and add a trend line, right? I tend to like doing the right click here, add trend line. And here you're going to select a linear trend line if you suspect a linear relationship. You can also display the equation and the R-squared value on the chart, which is something we often do. And this is looking pretty good. I want to make this look a lot nicer though. So here, under my line, right now it's a blue dotted line. If I select the fill in line button here, I can change this to be a solid line. I can change this to be black. I can change the dash type to be solid. Right now it's under dotted. I want it to be solid. The other thing I want to change is my markers. So if I go under the fill and line button here and select marker, I can choose the border to be solid. I can choose the fill to be solid. I can also choose the fill to be black and the border to also be black. And so now this looks more like a professional figure. The other thing that's kind of weird about this is there's a lot of white space. So one thing you can do is change, if allowed in your class, you can change the level at which the x-axis starts or the y-axis starts. So for this one, I'm going to select the axis and I'm going to go over here to axis options. And my minimum here, I'm going to change to be 40. And what that does is it pulls this x-axis over to be 40. So now the line and the dots fill the whole figure. The other thing I'm looking at is this is 40 to 60 to 80 to 100. There's a lot of dots in between these numbers. And this is my major, because my major unit here is 20. So I'm going to change my major unit to 10. And therefore I can actually try to figure out what these dots mean between 40 and 60, where they fall. That's important. All right. At this moment, this is a pretty nice figure. What I would do now is copy and paste this into Word and submit this with my report.